Ladies and gentlemen, we are starting our very important for us panel, Digital Technologies and Global Creative Market. Can you hear me well? Is it better?
1, 2, 3, проверяем. Слышно? Спасибо.
Can you hear me now? This morning, we have a very highly reputed panel, Dmitry Ganchev, the Deputy Director of the Department of Authorship of WIPO, Pierre-Olivier Lebrochure, Director on Policy and Regional Development of the International Federation of Organizations on Reproductive Rights. Alexander Tsvetkovich, Serbian Association of Singers, IPQuorum, General Director of Korean Association of Authors' Rights, Jang-Khun Bo Oleg, Chinese Association of Literature Authors, Director General, Salance Cesar Rodriguez, Association of Musical Authors of Cabo Verdes, President of the Association, singer, as we know. Michael Brizgalov, Russian National Museum of Music, Director General, President of Association of Musical Museums and Collectors. Silvana Yarmaluk, Regional Director of the Association of Writers and Directors Worldwide. Valeria Brusnikina, Deputy Director General, NRIS, Vice President of IP Chain. Is Valeria here? Excellent. My name is Yevgeny Safonov. I represent the information agency Intermedia. And Pavel Kartashov, the Deputy Director of the International Department of the Russian Authors Society. The floor is given to Pavel. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for coming. The topic, digital technologies and creative market, is the thing which is changing very fast. On the one hand, new digital markets and industries, taking away traditional opportunities which we had in the field of protection of authors' rights and intellectual property. On the other hand, digital technologies give us new opportunities which not always are clear about how they can be used. This future is approaching. It has taken place, but what exactly will be beneficial for us? What exactly will help us to protect the rights of those authors which create art products? We don't quite know. That's why today we have a very highly reputed representatives in the panel, and all the continents, nearly all the continents are represented, for us to be able to talk about what are the latest developments, ideas in the field of protecting intellectual property and authors' rights? What can be done? Which experience we are able to share, and what can we learn from each other, to borrow from each other, to be a little bit closer to the digital future which is approaching. As you know, recently there was the EU directive passed on the author's right, which on the one hand caused applause from those people who are protecting rights, intellectual property rights, but on the other hand, there were voices heard that it was too much, and maybe this directive will be a barrier for the development of creative industries. That's why we would also like to discuss these changes, these specific changes. And so far, let's listen to our colleagues. And I would like to remind you that we have the agenda, which should last for 1 hour. That's why every speaker has some 5-7 minutes for their presentations for us to be able to ask questions, which I'm sure will be asked, and to discuss matters which will pop up after our interesting presentations. The first speaker, who will talk about the author's right as the basic right of economy of creative sector, Dmitry Ganchev. The floor is yours.
Господин Ганчев.
Mr. Ganchev.
Добрый день.
Yeah, good morning. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers of the World Intellectual Property Organization to make a presentation here. I will look forward to looking at your event in the future. So I'm supposed to make an introduction, an overall introduction. Other speakers will speak about regional perspective, and I will speak from a more global perspective. If I can, I will try to speak short. First item is about digital technologies, how they change the system, whether the author's right still provides the basis. What is the demand for authors' products and how it changes the business model? I think on that basis we can proceed with our discussion. Last year, it was a record year in terms of joining international treaties. More than 40 countries joined. Intellectual property is becoming more and more common. Patent applications exceeded 1/4 in various areas, and today intellectual property is in every negotiation, and it can be used as an indicator of development, as a driving force. And we see more demand for rights protection, for copyright protection. At the same time, we are in a situation when there are more indicators. From a political context, I would like to say that we are working in an environment where we have a wider number of participants. This forum is for co-thinkers, but there are some people who do not like intellectual property rights, and they are putting a big impact on them, on us. Intellectual property is also a big controversial issue at a national level because it touches the personal life. It's not purely a legal aspect, it's becoming a political aspect. From a legal point of view, we can see that the material is becoming more complex. Many previous speakers have said already that more and more competencies are coming up. Many people consider intellectual property from different points of view. For example, the world Health Organization, the World Trade Organization, they continue to consider this. Speaking about technology, these technological issues are sometimes in conflict with legal provisions. And we can see a slowdown in the elaboration of a consensus at an international level compared to the past. There is a trend that we are starting to look for more flexible solutions. And we are considering commercial aspects about the intellectual property management. What are the responsibilities? What is the scope of the copyright sector? Have there been any changes? I think the responsibilities remain more or less the same, but maybe we have some more in addition. So the mechanism is operated on the basis of the existing creative market, how trade will be conducted, who is allowed to do what. So we get this mechanism through authors' rights. There is also a social aspect, because today we will consider various regional approaches. As always, there should be a balance. Someone wins, someone loses. As we heard yesterday, there were given some examples of the development in Kaliningrad. It provides an incentive to enrich the cultural content and cultural offering. A few words about the economic contribution of copyright. For the last 5 years, we have conducted some research which shows that creative industries connected with copyright account for 5.22%, and this figure is increasing. Russia is doing pretty well, but your research needs to be updated. Regarding employment, this figure is even higher. It's 5.35. It has an important social impact. Labor productivity in this area is higher than in many other traditional areas. We would like to see what is the relation between the creative industry and other economic indicators. Is there any interrelationship? We have established that there is a relation between such indicators as the creative industry development and GDP per capita, freedom from corruption, innovation, the innovation index, and competitiveness. Look, these are foreign direct investments. This relation is quite strong between creative industries and an FDI inflow, and also business freedom. Here we can see a positive trend, a positive contribution. A few words about the impact of digital environment, how it influences the industries operating in that context. In some cases, the effect is exaggerated. So it has not always been a revolutionary change. Sometimes it's about a change in the structure, but for many it's been an evolutionary development. Models change, but for copyright holders, it's important to reach consumers directly at a global scale. There are new models enabling us to monetize from a customer's perspective. It's a positive trend because better prerequisites have been created. And the nature of demand has been changing. In what sense? The consumption of creative products has increased. More people spend more time on the internet. Just imagine what potential it has for the creative industry representatives, because it will bear specific fruit. Consumers start to think about things which they have never thought before, but they consider such aspects as fraud, viruses, and problem-free payments. The distribution aspects are about the provision of consumers with more flexible solutions. What is happening in the digital economy? We managed to separate the content from format. Last week we discussed publishing activities. The old definition of a book is not relevant anymore. What can be a book nowadays? It can be a multimedia product. Who is a publisher? A publisher can be a web portal. In the past, in the old world, everything was so easy and understandable. Everything could be well described in regulatory documents, but now it turns out to be much more sophisticated. And now we have new opportunities to make settlements, to make payments, which is a challenge for the creative industry. Today we have the time of new opportunities. Quite often countries report on an increase in GDP, but for me it's also important what provides the basis for an increase in GDP. The creative sector is an area which contributes significantly in the enhancement of GDP. We need to develop serious research, not funny research, but a really justified research. The situation changes, and we can say that our business is becoming more complicated. We can forget about the stable value chain. It will gradually disappear, and we should be prepared for more changes. I don't think that traditional products will completely disappear in the digital environment. Just imagine, let's take a digital book. We thought that it will create conditions for the exclusion of standard books, but it's not so. There are many arguments stating that not everything is going to be digitized. But what changes is the role of our infrastructure and the role of mediators and intermediaries. This is a demonstration of having more opportunities in the area of creation, marketing, and consumption of creative products, because we need resources and other things for the distribution and production. Now it's becoming more fluid. Everything is, well, let's put it like this, everything goes softly or fluidly. That was my introduction. Now you will listen to other presentations. You will know what's going on in other regions. In my opinion, we need to conduct more research. We need to be open to new complex solutions. Thank you.
Colleagues, before we continue, I would like to draw your attention to what was said by Mr. Ganchev. There is this booklet about the research, which many know about. Please raise your hands, those who don't have it. And you will be handed the brochure. And in this brochure, there are figures with regard to the topic under discussion. And it's an illustration of what culture, of what creative industries are. This is a rather brief document, but describing the matter in detail. And I'm sure there will be enough copies. Thank you very much. Let's carry on. And a small proposal addressed to the speakers. Please, from your seats, make your presentations to save time. And please try to be concise. Stick to the time schedule. And now I would like to pass the floor to Olivier Libourget, and his presentation is about collective management and reprography.
Hear me like that? Okay. So first of all, thank you very much for this invitation and for inviting me to attend this meeting and to speak to you. And I will be brief, and I will try to start with a little bit in Russian, but I won't be long or complicated. Добрый день, дамы и господа. Меня зовут Pierre-Olivier Lesburger. Я работаю в IPQuorum. IPQuorum – это
IFRO is the International Federation on the Rights for Reproduction. My presentation will be in English. But IFRO is based in Brussels, in Belgium. It has 150 participants from all over the world. And Koperus in Russia is Vasily Teretsky. We have our representative in China, also present here. We have a representative in Kazakhstan and Azerbaijan. And now I will continue in English.
For having me here. And with the 5 minutes I have, I would like to give you a brief introduction to why collective management of right is relevant in the digital age. Because sometimes, and I think you referred to that earlier, we tend to hear that now that all the works are available very easily on the internet, it's not worth having collective licensing anymore. And the debate, I think, in Europe has shown that actually the digital age is a new chance to have proper collective management of works. So our federation, as I just said, hopefully clearly enough in Russian, has 150 members, and most of them are collecting societies. And the Russian-speaking audience may be familiar with Russian collecting societies that you have, like RAW, Voice, Upravis, or Kopirus. and we represent them at international level. And what we really believe is that today, all the new digital technologies that we have are the greatest opportunity for proper collective management of rights. And why is that? First of all, because we think that, and I think that's, well, what you can see with the IP chain is we are able today to build new technologies to ensure that rights can be cleared in a very seamless and easy way and creators remunerated. But also we think it helps government, because what a government wants to do when you have universities and schools and libraries, you want the students to have access to the works, to be able to download, to be able to read, but you also want that this be done legally. And that's what collective management is here to do. So it's to link the users of works together with the right holders who want to receive some remuneration for the use of their works. So here are two examples where I think collective management is relevant for the digital age and how we do it. And again, I'm talking about the print sector. So I think in the music sector, you have quite a different reality, in the audiovisual sector as well, but in the print sector, as actually Dimitas very rightly said, we thought that books would be overtaken by e-books very quickly, but in the end, we see that most people continue to read books in print and to print articles when you want to read them. So here's why we think collective licensing still has a major role to play in the digital environment. This is a way of representing all the different kinds of uses you can have of a copyright-protected work. So if we have some writers or publishers in the room, so where can your works be used? They can be used in the classroom, they can be reproduced by a teacher, they can be printed in a copy shop, and they can be also private copying at home of your works, and reprographic reproduction taking place in corporations, in government, in schools. And these are all the different ways that have been developed over the years to try and make sure that all these uses of copyright are legally done and compensated for. And you have on this stage also various representatives of CMOs, that's Solange Cesarov now on my left and Zhang Hongbo on my right, who each of them are using some of this mechanism to make sure that creators get compensated. So if you think about education, now I think when you think about universities or schools, many of the uses of works are digital. A teacher will be emailing to his or her students a course pack, and they will be downloading articles and putting things on a digital platform. How do you compensate that? How do you make sure that there will be some compensation paid for that? Well, here's an example from the United Kingdom, where the collective management organization has developed all kinds of solutions to make sure that students and teachers can use works, but this is done in a controlled and legal way, and compensation is paid. So through the license offered by the collective management organization, students can create digital copies, share them via the internet, download them, exchange them with other universities. So I think we have to dispel this myth that in the digital age, it's impossible to control the use of works. It's actually very possible, and here's one solution that has been developed covering all kinds of sources and applications you can think of in a classroom. So that's one example. And obviously, in the text and image sector, the education sector is key because it's where most works are being copied and reproduced. And my second example is private copying and reprography levies. And I'm sure a number of you will be familiar with this because you have a very successful levy system in Russia. And these are the fees that are paid on the printers, the smartphone, the laptops when they enter the territory of Russia, when they are manufactured in Russia, and the money is collected by a CMO and is paid to the right holders. And here again, some people will say, but nowadays no one does private copying anymore. We stream, we have different uses. Why should I pay on my smartphone, on a USB stick, some money to the right holders when I don't use that to copy copyright protected works? And here again, we think studies show that a lot of people continue to copy, and of course there are new ways of copying works, like streaming, like storing in the cloud. And I just wanted to show you the new list of devices that are subject to a private copying levy scheme in the Netherlands. It started last year, And they just realized, they thought, well, it's true. Actually, today many people will copy works using Dropbox, using cloud environments. So we have to make them subject to a levy. And you can see now they've added a number of these to the list of levies. And you even have wearables with storage capacity. And that's the e-watch or this. I don't know how you would call that in English, but this sort of new devices that you can wear, but that can also be used to copy works and to exchange content. So the message really that I want to carry during this short 5 minutes is the digital environment offers many opportunities for collective licensing, and it's true in the music, it's true in the audiovisual, and for sure it's true in the print and image sector. And the monies that will be collected by these collecting societies are not negligible. They're actually very important for the writers and the publishers. And a survey that was made in the UK recently showed that 25% of British writers receive more remuneration from the secondary uses of the works, from the collective licensing, than they do from the direct selling of the books. So that's to show the magnitude and the importance of collective management. And I have a few publications with me that I would be happy to give to anyone who is interested in private copying levies or collective management of reprography. So thank you very much. Спасибо.
Thank you for such an interesting story. I would like to give the floor to Alexander Cvetkovic.
Okay. Well, hello. First of all, my name is Alexander Cvetkovic. I come from Serbia, from Belgrade. I'm a director of collective society PI in Serbia, which represent performers. I'm at the same time a member of the managing board of SCAPRA. SCAPRA is an international association that collects performers organizations throughout the world. Thank you for inviting me to this great conference. And I must be honest, up until yesterday I didn't know I was going to be a speaker here. So I had a very short time to prepare a presentation, which is good because we have 5 minutes only. Basically, I will be brief and I will tell you what is the situation in the country that I represent. Can I have something for the... Which?
The microphone.
Okay. 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 Thank you. Okay. So, as you probably know, Serbia was part of Yugoslavia for most of 20th century, and while being a socialist country, Yugoslavia had a strong tradition of copyright. Authors' rights were fully protected during socialist era, which continued up to today. As for performers, which are musicians, singers, etc., and phonogram producers, even though Yugoslavia signed the Rome Convention, little was done for the protection of secondary uses of phonograms. But there was a strong protection in terms of sales, where performers would get their money for each phonogram sold. Only in the late 20th century, in 1999, we had the new copyright law which granted performers full body of rights for secondary uses. But in first few years, this was done only through producers individually, which in most cases did not produce any kind of remuneration to the performers. However, in 2009, there were some changes that allowed for true collective society of performers in Serbia. When you look at the sectors in Serbia, when you look at the audio sector, you will see that it is very well protected. However, not in terms of making available on-demand right, but it is very well protected for broadcasters, for cable usage, for individual businesses that are playing music, and for the copyright and for the private copy. We have about 3 million euros annually and distribute to about 35,000 performers. How it works in real life? it works through two systems. One system is for broadcasters and cable providers who must pay basically two fees. They need to pay to the Musical Authors Society remuneration, which includes a remuneration for musical authors and from film authors. From the perspective of individual users, there is one-stop shop where they pay one fee and cover everything. As for broadcasters, they are by the law obliged to send playlists, which is done through dedicated website and also directly sent to the authors.
Sorry, Alexander, could you still the microphone hold a bit closer?
Sorry.
Yes.
Yes.
Because
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Good. That's better.
Okay,
Thank you.
Okay. So what we have in Serbia is probably what you can see in most of the countries is that there are stronger and stronger trends of online usage, but unfortunately, performers are not collectively protected in these fields. They are only protected through their exclusive rights, which in real life means that they, unless they're really famous ones, they must transfer their rights to the producers for lump sum or sometimes for no money at all. And we do expect this situation to change as we have a new law in Parliament of Serbia, which we expect will introduce a new remuneration for the for the making available right for performers. And we're hopeful that this new law will be brought forward unless the election surprises this year. In Serbia, we tend to have elections every year because of the political mayhem. As for new technologies, I must say that I've seen artificial intelligence in the agenda, and we unfortunately do not have that. We are, however, integrating in what's called the virtual recordings database that is built and refined by SCAPRA, which is an association, as I told before, based in Brussels. What we essentially want to do is to make a database that is on the world level and that includes all the recordings that are made everywhere with full lineups for all the performers and all the phonogram producers and all the mandates that were given to various CMOs, collecting society throughout the world. Locally, we have developed our own system for fingerprinting. And as I said, we don't have any artificial intelligence yet, but we're hopeful. And that's about it. Thank you so much. If there are any questions, I'll be glad to answer.
Спасибо, Александр. Наверное, вопросы мы...
Thank you, Alexander. I think we will ask questions at the end today. But now the floor is given to Mr. Yego Seobum from South Korea. We know that South Korea is one of the world's leaders in terms of regulation of the digital market and integrated property, and it might be interesting to hear you. Thank you.
Okay, my name is Ki Seop-yu. I work for the Korea Music Copyright Association as a Secretary General. I've been working for the KOMCA for the 14 years, and then, I would like to present the digital market in Korea. And first of all, thank you for inviting me, and it's a beautiful city, Kaliningrad. And it's my first time to visit Russia. It's very beautiful, and then the air is very fresh, so my nose is better. Okay. First, before my presentation, I would like to introduce the KOMCA. KOMCA stands for the Korean Music Copyright Association. We was established in 1964. The number of KOMCA members is around 30,000. The number of KOMCA musical works in our database around the 3 million. Domestic is 745,000, and foreign around the 3 million. And we have two legal positions. One is from the Civil Act of Korea. We register our company as a non-profit organization to the government. And then according to the other thing is Copyright Act of Korea. Under the Article 105, we got the permission from the government as a CMO. And the number of KUMCA staff is 183. And we also have the reciprocal agreement with the foreign societies, around 100 societies, including Russian also society, Laos. So through the reciprocal agreement, the Laos represents Korea repertoire in Russian territory on behalf of KUMCA. KUMCA also represents the Russian repertoire in Korea territory. We collect the Russian repertoire in Korea, and then we send money to the Laos. The Laos distribute the money to their members. It's kind of network in the world. I would like to show the KUMCA collection in the last 5 years. And actually, fortunately, our income is increasing dramatically. So comparing to 2014, now is almost doubles, 177 million US dollars. The digital occupied the 33%, and the mechanical occupied the 70%. The mechanical include the sound recording and like a physical CD and media, and any device which can save some reproduce some musical works, and public performance and broadcasting and foreign income. So digital is the biggest part in the KUMCA. Yeah, in the digital collection, as you can see, the streaming is the biggest part. It occupies 64%. And download is just 20%, and the ring bear is 2.3%. Ring bear was biggest part in the last 10 years ago, but the smartphone boom, and then people don't use the ring. They don't buy the ring on this website. They use just smartphone. And audiovisual is occupied 11.5%. The audiovisual include like a YouTube service, the audiovisual platform site. Their collection is included in the audiovisual site, and the other income is 0.7%. This is the last 5 years. This is the collection trend. You can see there is increasing is very fast. The streaming collection has been increasing very dramatically. And also you can see comparing to 2017 and 2018, the AV, the audiovisual collection is the big growth because of YouTube collection. And the download is still stable, but the first time 2018, their collection of download has been decreased in 2018 compared to 2017. And this is our digital licensing tariff. Act, the KUMCA should get approved from the government regarding tariff. So first of all, we submit the draft version of our tariff to the government, and the government approved it, and then we can collect the royalty according to the tariff approved by government. You can see the categorized is streaming and download. It's 3 categories in streaming. So normally, KUMCA share is 10.5% of revenue, the DSP, digital service providers revenue, and download is the revenue is almost 11% of total income of DSPs. And this procedure is for the licensing and collecting and distribution workflow in digital. The most important thing is the first stage, the licensing contract. Recently, some IT company, when they try to launch the new music services, they try to talk to KUMCA because they need to calculate the cost. For the view of the DSP, copyright royalty is a cost. So they want to know how much they pay before they launch the new service. So it's very nice because most of IT company contact KUMCA before they launch the new service. And second is after licensing contract, the DSP should submit the usage report. But usage report is very huge volume, so they submit the report to our FTP server, and then After that, we verify that the usage report is correct or not, because if usage reports have an error, in that case, we can distribute correctly. So after that, we matching between the usage report and Comca database, musical works database. And we calculate the loyalty, and then we ask to pay to the DSP, and then we get the loyalty from the DSP and distribution loyalty to our members. This workflow takes place on a monthly basis, and then in the total usage report, there's 5 billion lines, so huge volume of data. So that's why we manage our own IT team to deal with this all over workflow. And then we invest a lot of money to develop the IT system to make it efficiency, to improve the efficiency of the workflow. I think the matching is the most important part in the CMO, because if we match it correctly, we can show our distribution result transparently to our members. And this is the Korean situation, is the market share in Korea in digital service provider. We excluded the audio-visual service like YouTube in the chart. So local DSP is the biggest one is Melon, is a low-end entertainment in Korean company. Their market share is about 56%, and the second is the Genie. The Genie is cooperated with the Korean telecom company, so their services has a lot of discount if the consumer subscribe to the Korea telecom company. So kind of discount bundle services. And there are 5 big local DSP. They occupy the 97% of market share, even though some global company launched it in Korea, their music service in 2 years ago in Korea, but their performance is not good, because I think I heard from the colleague from the Melon, the Korean consumer is really interesting, just the UI for the Korean. But global services, their UI, user interface is not fit for the Korean people, so that's why the Korean people really love to listen using the Korean local DSPs. Yeah. And this is a unique thing in Korea. As I mentioned, the Korean DSP, their market share is very strong. Also, they have another position. It is a sound recording distributor, so they can control the market. So the global company launched it 2 years ago, as I mentioned, but one DSP, also they are sound recording distributor, they do not want to provide their sound recording to the global music services. So it's kind of it can be the competitive issue, but I think it makes the DSPs, local DSP, make them govern the entire market. And that's it, it's the Korea situation, and then I think I'll keep the 5 minutes. Thank you.
Большое спасибо.
Thank you very much. Dear friends, I would like to remind you regarding our agenda. Let it take some 5 to 7 minutes, and I would like to give the floor to Mr. John Kumbo.
Good afternoon, dear ladies. Good morning, dear ladies and gentlemen. Firstly, I would like to thank the organizers for the invitation. This is for the second time for me to participate in this forum, and it's my second time to make a speech. New changes and trends in creative industries of China. The new reform in the system of administrative management of copyright. And this is what is led by the leadership of the country. This means that the administrative
Кликер не работает, очевидно.
So the pointer doesn't work. Management of copyright is now done a lot more effectively, and it plays an important administrative surveillance and management plays an important role to protect the interests of copyright holders. The state management department, together with other ministries, starting from 2005, are conducting a 15-year specialized operation to combat violations and piracy in the network. The operation is called the Operation of Sword, which protects the network, the network music market. Such companies, such campaigns are supported by all the stakeholders. The consumers have access to the music, to the products legally, and the measures of administrative surveillance and management work well. Invitations for interviews announces a list of important creative works. Mostly audiovisual works, important sports games, well-known universal art TV programs and bestsellers. This is a way of attracting. This is a very well-organized system providing protection of copyright holders. 26th of April, there will be the start of this operation to protect copyright holders of copyrights for this year. So China draws great attention to protect intellectual property and stringents the sanctions for violations. And lately, Xi Jinping underlined the importance of this matter. In China, there are 3 specialized courts to protect intellectual property in Beijing, Shanghai, and Guangzhou, 7 interregional tribunals on IP. In the Superior Court, the tribunal was created on intellectual property. In Guangzhou and Beijing, there are internet courts working where all matters are considered via internet in the full-fledged process. Every year, the Supreme Court and the number of provincial high courts publish typical court sentences on debates on intellectual property to be considered in future by other judges. Characteristics of creative industries in China. The industry of copyright is a dynamically developing sector. In China, 11 years on, research are conducted with regard to the contribution of copyright to GDP. It was 7.35% in 2017. Many copyright holders, they honor their rights and interests. Authors know that their works, when they enter the market, will bring income for them. This is how their rights are honored. With regard to individual authors, sometimes it's difficult to conduct agreement, to communicate with professional companies. Sometimes they don't know, they are not well aware of their rights, and they sometimes are legally illiterate and are unable to sue the violators. That's why authors very often address professionals and associations of copyright holders. There are ways of promoting, honoring the copyrights of their holders through collective management. All our organizations of copyright holders are not NGOs, but state-owned ones. The State Department on authors on copyright supervise these activities. In the digital age, the copyright has become a key element in creative industries. There is such a thing as active of copyright in China. In many successful large-scale companies, they develop ways of copyright management. Such companies as BAT, Alibaba, Tencent have rules of managing, of copyright management. They've developed business models. They need resources of content which are protected by law. They know they will win with regard to the exclusive resources of content. Music, audiovisual works, games, TV programs, intellectual resources create good income for them, and they are ready to upload that on the internet. They invest their intellectual creativity in editing, development, translation, and other activities. And these campaigns, they cover not only users, but also refer to polymerization platforms. And they use such new terms as network literature IP, filmmaking IP. The copyright, as I have said, is a nucleus of creative industry. Lately in China, copyright holders complain about violations of their rights in UGC, app, MWC, in new media, in cloud services. Copyright holders should join the organizations of copyright holders in the new epoch. Now in China, they are amending the law on copyright, and this month there will be many hearings taking place. Thank you very much for your presentation. And I would like to pass the floor to Solange Rodriguez, who will tell us about the musical market of Africa and about how they how they cooperate with online platforms.
Good morning. I would like also to say a few words in Russian, but my presentation will be in English. I'm from Cabo Verde, and our musical authorship company, I will tell you a few words about how we work and how we participate in the International Confederation of CSAC companies. That's the point of view from Africa at this point of time. It's a critical time for companies taking care of copyright, as all our previous colleagues have already said and will continue to say. We understand that the world has changed, and right now it's important that we understand how we will proceed with the copyright in the digital era. I also would like to thank the organizers for inviting me. I'm very pleased to be here, and now I will continue in the English language.
You can see that the global collection, this is a report from CSAC, the International Confederation of the Societies of Authors and Creators, that from 2016 to 2018, there is a really high growth of 11% of the global collection in our continent, in our continent. But what we understand that in digital world, the growth is from 2016 to 2018, it's more than 100%, so it's a huge growth. We have a big market, platforms market, but we have two great examples of great African markets, Nigeria and South Africa. There was a really boom, huge boom from 2014 because of the activation of the communication operators on those countries. In a digital market in an African continent, we have the presence of the platforms well known in the whole world, like YouTube Music, Spotify, or Deezer. In Cabo Verde as well, those are really present, but we have local platforms like Musca, and our CMO did an agreement before even Musca born, so they start paying for the using of the Cape Verdean creators' works, but also African works in this platform since the first day they were open online. The reality that we are feeling in the whole world, that everything is changing, the way of protection and the way of the CMOs, the collective management organization should work to protect the creators in this digital area. It's a challenge for the whole world, and in Cabo Verde we still feel this in the continent African as well. So what we feel that is streaming growing up and the download is decreasing. The success of the streaming is based in the advertisement that is free, and the subscription of streaming is a success residual value. So we understand that the catalog of creators, Cape Verdeans with African creators, is growing each day in the platforms digital. So we are really working to see how we can do the best agreements to protect the right holders in these digital platforms. We understand that this is the most important point, that it's in discussion. In WIPO last week, it was in the ACCR in Geneva, it was the focus point. In CSAC and in the CIAM, International Council of Creators and Musical Creators, this is the focus that we have, and all the CMOs are focused on this. But in Africa, the reality is it's a little bit different. We still focus in how we can have the traditional way of collecting and of protecting the creators in our broadcasters, in radio and television, and we are really focused always in private copy. In Cabo Verde, we have a good law of private copy. Since 2017, we are collecting our private copy with the help of the government, that it's always supporting the CMOs and the legislation, so we can really have a good work, because we know if we don't have good laws in our countries, we cannot have, the CMOs cannot have a easy work. But we are focused we still focus in a traditional way of collecting. Our CMO, it's really, it's a baby. We have just 5 years old, so we are still doing the job from the beginning. But of course, what we understand for Africa continent, the big problem of the big priority is how to see all Africa as one market to the digital sector. We can have the example of the hubs that we have in Europe, like Harmonia, or also ICE, the other hub that there's a lot of CMOs that are working together to have one agreement with the big platforms like YouTube and Spotify and iTunes, because when you have a biggest catalog, it's much more easier to negotiate a fair compensation. Even we know that in the digital world, it's not fair. We don't have fair compensation until now. We think that in our CMO we are attending a lot of training, so we can improve the way that we are working to make the best work we can for the authors and for the creators. This is the reason that make us born. And of course, we think that another big problem is to make the young creators understand that the solution is collective management organization. When you have young creators that, because they think that they will have big visibility when they doing this own subscription directly to the platform, and this is of course something that it's a dream, but it's a mistake, because you will not collect a lot of money doing your subscription directly to the platform. We still telling them that the collective management is the solution, because just giving an example, we were attending the technological committee in Lisbon last year in Portugal, and with a representation of people that are working in YouTube and other big platforms, and just one idea, to have 1,000 euros each person that are doing their own subscription in a platform like YouTube should have at least 100 more than 100 million views for one song to have 1,000 euros, more than 100 million views. This is impossible, even for huge markets. This is something that it's really, really difficult. So the great thing that we think that the new changes that we are having, like the signal that the European Parliament just did a few weeks or 2 weeks ago, approving the Article 13, that now it's Article 17, about the transfer of value that can give back the power from the creators, and also allows this article changing the law, so we can have a strong support and strong protection for the creators. It's something that begins in Europe, but it feels to Africa, and it's a change that we believe that it will be world worldwide. So it's why it's really important all our engaging on this process of law changing. And Cabo Verde support it. And I think we can do more. Of course, this new moment. It's if each continent, at some point, it's in a different process of protection of collective management, protection of the creators. We feel that in this protection in digital area, it's almost the same thing from the whole world. We are all searching a solution for something that maybe we are late, but not too late, still on time for the future that is now. And in Cabo Verde and in Africa, we also want to make the right decision because we are really, really young continent. People, more than 70% of African people have less than 25 years old. So the market, the digital market, is there as well. And the future, it's today. So we think that is something that the solution should be global, and we are definitely interested. The 5 minutes, I think that is already done. So I thank you so much for your attention. And once more, thank you, the organization, for the invitation, for being here today with you.
Большое спасибо.
Thank you very much. And now I would like to give the floor to Mikhail Bezgalov. He will tell us about the protection of museums' rights in this civilization world.
Коллеги, ну, в отличие от тех, кто сейчас говорил, очень уважаемых людей, я вообще впервые на таком мероприятии. Мне каждый день приходится выступать по разным темам, но про это я никогда еще не рассказывал. И завораживающие уже сутки у меня идут, мне так все интересно. И то, что даже мы вчера успели обсудить, как нам нужно двигаться вместе музеям нашей страны и Российскому союзу правообладателей, у нас есть хорошие перспективы, потому что на музейных площадках не так давно зазвучали вопросы о том, что нужно еще лучше взаимодействовать с организациями. Я хотел бы вам задать один короткий вопрос, и сразу у меня времени мало, поэтому я позволю себе подглядывать, чтобы не растекаться по мысли. Итак, скажите, пожалуйста, каждый для себя, давно ли каждый из вас был в музее? И давайте мы себе представим музей несколько лет тому назад и музей сегодняшний. И сегодня во всех музеях мира, и, конечно же, в музеях российских, такое место отведено всевозможным цифровым технологиям, что люди уже перестали задумываться о том, что это не живой музейный экспонат, а что мы представляем какие-то сегодня технологии. Сегодня, когда мы говорим о виртуальных выставках, когда мы говорим о иных всевозможных видах изображений и так далее, все это за последние несколько лет в нашей стране стало совершенно обыденным делом, о которых 10 лет назад все говорили как о каких-то великих достижениях. Итак, музеи меняются. Мы знаем, что музеи создаются обществом, и музеи меняются вместе с обществом. И, конечно, музеи сегодня отвечают на все вызовы времени. И сегодня музеи достаточно идут хорошо в ногу со временем. И меняется сама миссия музея, и даже представление людей о том, музей, так грустно, не разговаривайте, знаете, женщины, которые не разрешают, говорите тише, все это уже давно нет. Но в большинстве музеев в нашей стране этого уже давно нет. Есть нормальная, активная позиция сегодня самих музейщиков, есть экспонат. Мы там спорим, что нужно, что, конечно, музей-экспонат – это важно, все технологии должны помогать раскрывать образ, ну и так далее. Все-таки я хочу вернуться к технологиям.
Sorry, по-моему, перевод не работает. Скажи, там все?
It does. Does it? So, the digital epoch which we are talking about today makes museum leave the usual frame, and the overall digitalization which is taking place creates new opportunities for all kinds of illegal use of images, of museum artifacts. We believe that it often happens due to the lack of knowledge and not deliberately. We do have this kind of problems in the museum community, and copyright is a known phenomenon today. However, for museums, it's a new specific matter. For many museums, publishers, and you know that today museums are not only a place where it's not an institution where people come to see an exhibition. These are also storages of huge archives. For instance, the Russian National Museum of Music, we store everything which was created by Shostakovich, Tchaikovsky, Rachmaninoff, great Russian composers, and many other composers. Their notes, original notes, are what we have. And this causes high interest among researchers. And this interest is increasing with time. That's why every day in our work we face this kind of matters. And issues of concern for us in this situation are what kind of rights belong to museums. Because every day we hear from researchers, and this has been mentioned many times during the session, not all want to follow laws. Not all think that they have exceptional rights. So every day we have these discussions. Which rights belong to museums and for which a museum has authority to share. People who don't deal with that. For people who don't deal with that, this question may sound strange. There is a federal law on museums and museum stocks, and there is an article, number 36, dedicated to where the definition is given. Our country, museum articles which belong to the Russian stock of museums belong to the state and are handed over to museums under the right of operational management. This is how a museum is the holder of the eternal right, perpetual right for museum collections. So they exercise the right of an owner for those articles. Museums, along with those rights, hold exceptional rights for those museum articles. The fact of transfer by the state to the museum of a museum article, of a museum item, doesn't mean often that the museum also gets the exceptional rights for that. Now, very briefly, I will elaborate on that. In practice, the situation is as follows. To publish in a publication, for instance, an autograph of Rachmaninoff, which we have in our stocks, a contract needs to be concluded with a museum for the right of reproduction of the museum article. Even if it is an image, is in public ownership. If the term of protecting the copyright hasn't expired, then the right holder should be also approached. people just reproduce pictures, images from internet without even thinking about that. If we are talking about Rachmaninoff, this is one of our specialities, and recently we had a court case. There was a publication by a publishing house in St. Petersburg, and they published a book where they used a lot of autographs, graphic works, and other things which they collected from everywhere, and they also published in their book photographs. Photographs, which was good. And as far as museum articles are concerned, which are unique, it's fine, but photographs is something that can be copied, multiplied. And then an interesting situation may happen, because the use of photographs, we have photographs which are also part of our stocks belonging to the Russian Federation, and they are covered by this article number 36 that I've mentioned in the beginning. And the scarce juridical practice which exists on this topic. There are some 14, 15 cases. There have been only 14, 15 cases, and were about a photograph. It was for the first time, and this process is ongoing, and we don't know what the end will be. It's an interesting case because photographs are multiplied very often, and I'm not saying that never, but the most often people even don't think about a photograph being an article, a museum article. And there are many issues like that. And I'm talking about museum problems, which are similar to problems of libraries, philharmonic societies, concert organizations. And we would like to go together in that direction with your organization and the Union of Museums, headed by Piotrovsky, the director of the Hermitage. And at our last meeting, we agreed that we decided to create a permanent commission of the Russian Museums Association to discuss this topic nationwide, to explain, to support, to help right holders to have their rights honored. At our festival, which is the biggest in the world, a museum festival called Intermuseum, and this year it will be from the 30th of May through to the 2nd of June, and we're expecting some 3,000 professionals, museum professionals, to participate, and we will be talking about this particular topic for the first time ever on such a big platform, and in November, there will be another International Museum Forum, and it will be a big symposium called Museum and Music. And this will be not only for musical museums, it will be of a wider context, and we will be discussing this matter. And it was only yesterday that I had that insight about I need to discuss these questions about using music in museums in relation to copyright holding, not only in Russia but worldwide. Thanks for listening. Thank you, Mikhail. We have 2 speakers left. And now I would like to pass the floor to Silvana Yermaluk, who will be talking about the latest initiatives in protecting the rights of script writers and film directors.
Буду говорить на русском, хотя я из Аргентины.
I'm from Argentina, but I will be talking Russian. I'm a scriptwriter and I represent the Film Directors Association of Argentina. In 2008, it became a collective law association. Our association collects money from all film directors in Argentina. On the other hand, as an association, when we became a collective law association, we joined the Writers and Directors Worldwide Association. Thank you for inviting, by the way. Because from all the presentations, it's been mentioned many times, I can tell you how we live and what is our system. It's ahead of digital systems. It's also a member of CISAC. Recently in Moscow, we have had a congress on the 25th, 26th of March. On the 26th of March, the European Parliament, which was mentioned by Mrs. Rodriguez, our associations, they managed to push this law. What is the idea behind this? What do you think? Who are the authors of audiovisual products? A composer, a film director, and a scriptwriter. These are three creators. Despite all the experiences of the French organization, this year when we had the Congress in Moscow, in most CIS countries, this law is not complied with. So that means it's not adopted at the governmental level. They do not get the right to show their pictures. Television and internet, they are not paying for our works as authors. In principle, we have a system. Our associations get money on the platforms which show movies, and we enter into contracts with other organizations representing other countries, and that's how federations are created. Recently, the African Association has been established, and then the Latin American, FESAL. This year, we conducted a congress in Moscow so that a CIS federation to be created. Certainly, there were representatives from Russia, Azerbaijan, and Belarus. None of the CIS countries has an association for collective law. Not a single film director, not a single scriptwriter in CIS receives any money for his copyright. Yeah, a week ago, one of the main directors died, who is a great master, who has not received any single kopeck for his works during 50 years. I think this film was shown in many countries in the world, but the associations created by authors, they hire lawyers enabling to enforce law so that this law is adopted and we as authors could receive our fair remuneration. Sometimes there is a bad understanding of the system. How will producers pay for these also? But this money has nothing to do with producers, because producers pay, roughly speaking, they pay a salary, but it has nothing to do with copyright. When a producer speaks about some work, then he signs a document stating that he refuses from any copyright. But an author can never refuse from his author's rights, because he and his children will continue to receive this money. So users, platforms pay for those rights. That's what we call nowadays internet platforms. In the beginning, they will be against that. When we started that, nobody wanted to pay, neither distributors nor channels. But when this case was considered in the court, it was realized that even if they pay all the money, it will be a minimum, because we are the authors. I am not sure that I have put it clearly, but I hope that you have understood most of what I have said. Thank you. So, Valery Brusnikin now, the floor is yours.
Colleagues, for me it's a pleasure to be the final speaker, and I will try to be really brief, and I don't have the 15 minutes that I planned that my presentation will last for. This is not for the first year that we are exporting our products, which I'm talking about products of creative industries, films, music, computer programs, computer games, and other products which from Russia are exported these days. Over the last years, the Russian exports increased 1.5 times, and this was possible thanks to technologies, thanks to the fact that there is no need to go to a place and show something. We can use digital services. And if we speak globally about the market of creative industries, it's increasing really fast. Based on results of international research, 14% a year, and it's increasing faster than other sectors. And in a big number of countries, export of products of creative industries account for a big share in foreign trade. In China, it's 1/3. In Russia, the situation is different, but we are also growing. When we shift from when we start talking about intellectual property from actual world to virtual world, then it's the strongest who survives, like in the Wild West. I'm not going to tell you about the big number of projects which we faced, which we are facing, which each of you is facing when you, having created something, tries to popularize it and to earn money from promotion. One of the examples, one case was discussed when a member of the Union of Composers composed a musical piece and and is selling rights for $2 on an internet platform. Some time after, he gets a video film, a short film, where his music is used as a phonogram from New Zealand, for which $2 were paid, and he approaches various organizations, starting from the Union of Composers, legal companies, to protect his rights. And he was said that $2 were paid, and it was used lawfully, that piece of music. And this is only the top of the iceberg. And for creative industries to develop further, it's very important to create a healthy, transparent market. The infrastructure of trust to RPA that we are developing made this organization into a credible organization to create the necessary environment for our creators. And it should replace all kinds of archaic services to the working solutions which will allow to manage huge catalogs without any limitations, to manage millions of catalogs. What other tendency I would like to mention in the last few years, what emerged, and they are still emerging, new objects of intellectual property, which are full-fledged participants of this commercial turnover, but until now they have been regulated legally. And now I'm talking about biometric data, reputation and prestige of a company, and profile in media, and this is what we are having today. This is our daily reality. And the architecture of the market which we are creating, the main plus is that it allows us to work with the existing objects of intellectual property and with the emerging ones, emerging every day. And we have created an architecture which consists of 5 levels. The level of business services, in-apps, systemic platform, infrastructure, and the level and state level. The infrastructure level has our solutions, IP chain, distributed register of any objects of intellectual property, which allows to follow the life cycle, and this is the lake of data which allows to collect information, to store information about any projects, to know what's happening with that object today, and based on IP chain allows to create services which allows right holders to manage their catalogs, to earn money from that, to combat the illegal use, to follow the use of their products. And there are such services as INRIS, protecting rights through deponing. It allows to protect the content in digital environment from illegal use. It allows to monitor huge resources, to identify resources which illegally use the content. These are such solutions as coffee, which allows to get to borrow money with the collateral in the form of intellectual property, and such solutions as IPEX, which allows to settle transactions where every user, every copyright holder can agree without intermediate agents. Intermix is another solution which allows to sound any objects using music in commercial purposes in bars, restaurants, with detailed statistics for the market about actual use of musical works. And these are not all the services which exist on the market and which are emerging on the market with the main purpose of making the market healthier, with the purpose to serve the interests of copyright holders. Thanks for listening. Thank you, Valeria. Colleagues, judging by no one banging at the door, we have some 10 minutes to ask questions. I hope we have that time, and I hope that questions are there.
В зале.
Colleagues, we need a microphone in. Is it working, the microphone over there? Thank you.
Speaking English.
Only introduce yourself.
My name is Ivan Zadorozhny. I'm from Russian Author Society. And I have a little question for our Korean colleague, Yuki Siop. Mr. Kisiop, you've demonstrated us a great growth of revenues from digital sector. So it was impressive, and my question is regarded to your legislative initiatives, Korean legislative initiatives. We know that recent CRD directive had been adopted, and amendments to this directive had been adopted in European Union in regard of link tax and blocking filters for unauthorized content. Do you use such kind of legal initiatives in Korea to receive more remuneration from your digital sources, from your social medias? If you don't, probably you consider such kind of initiatives in Korea to make benefits for your authors and right holders?
Okay, it's a very difficult question. Okay, I try to answer correctly. Yeah. Okay, we follow up the EU directive amendments the last month, and then it was very. I heard it's very competitive. The other party is really has been lobbying to reject the law, but I think we already have a license with some kind of the UGC platform. So, but the rate was negotiated between the KCMA and the DSPs. But if the kind of amendment, the influence to the Korean Copyright Act, maybe it can give the stronger power to the right holders. So I think it will be good effect for the right holders side. And yeah, but I think the legislation cannot make everything, because negotiation is a different part. So using the legislation, we can improve the rate. We can raise the rate or the amount of money royalty. But I think it's not perfect, but we can use it. Yeah, that's my answer. Thank you.
Спасибо. Коллеги,
Thank you, colleagues. Any more questions? Have all of you understood everything? We are just starting. Then I've got a proposal. Maybe we will wrap up this session anyway. If some of you would like to get one of these, please raise your hands and you will get one. Anyway, it contains some codes here which you can use and ask questions regarding the presentations of today or any others that are related to the topic. Thank you very much.
Back home is like 15 degrees or something like that, yes.